We're going to get started. I want to honor everybody's time today, so we'll get started on time. So you're here because you'd like to learn more about the redesign process that we are undergoing for our website. So thank you for taking the time to be here. We are live streaming, and we will share a link to the recording after when it's uploaded so that the rest of the campus and students will have an opportunity to see this presentation. My name is Luz Reyes Martin. I am the Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications here at Santa Barbara City College. And I will start our presentation, and then Dan Watkins will also have some more information to share. There's quite a bit of slides, so I'm going to run through them pretty efficiently, but we will leave time at the end for questions if there are any questions for myself or the rest of our planning team, which I will introduce. I will start off by saying that we're not yet ready at this point to show design. So that's coming. So today the focus of our presentation will be what's the project, what work has already happened, what's the timeline, and what the process has been so far. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the consultant team that is working with us. They will come back for a subsequent meeting where we will be able to start showing design. And we'll talk about what their role is and the work that we've been doing with them so far. So we'll be sharing today a high-level view of what we're trying to accomplish, answer some questions, and just start sharing with our campus community what this project is. So we have an SBCC planning team. Some of them are here today, but we have Lori Vasquez, who's an assistive technology specialist, Dan Watkins, director of IT, Jennifer Hawk, who is here, Kenley, our dean, Melanie Belanger, who is our marketing and communications specialist, Arturo Rodriguez, our new dean of student affairs, and Ben Partee was in part of our planning team until he retired. And myself. So this has been our team since the summer of 2016. That was when we first interviewed the different companies who submitted proposals to redesign our website. So our team selected iFactory, which is a team headquartered in Boston. They have over 15 years of experience specifically with higher education clients and many more years with nonprofit groups and other web sites that they've worked on. They specialize in really taking a look at what the organizational goals are and what the user experience should be and designing websites that way. Some of their educational websites that they've worked on, they have done quite a lot of community colleges, but also a lot of state and private colleges, such as Harvard, MIT, NYU. They recently did the USC Film School's website, for example. And this is their team. You will have seen some of them if you participated in focus groups last spring, and you'll get to meet some of them in the upcoming weeks and months when they come out to talk more about design. So what's the big picture? What are we trying to accomplish? So the key thing that we want to start communicating is that our website is primarily a communication tool. It is our first impression to prospective students, to members of the community, to parents. It is our most public representation of the institution, and it's highly influential for students as they are researching, where they might want to go to school. iFactory wanted us to note that there's a lot of research that supports, the fact that students really rely on websites to get information about a college, especially if they're not familiar with a particular college. Currently, our website doesn't do the best job that it could to tell our story or to talk about who our students are. And it's an increasingly competitive market for colleges. So it's really important that we take the time to update our website. And also, very importantly, our site is not designed to be responsive. And what I mean by that is that it's not easy to see it on a mobile device or on a tablet. So that's a huge priority for us in this redesign. So some of the project objectives from the RFP, we really wanted to focus in on what are the major things that we want to accomplish. I think we all recognize that if we wanted to do a complete overhaul of all the content and every page, that would be a really long, involved process. But we know that there are some things that are really high priority. The look and feel, having a responsive design, making sure that our website meets accessibility standards that we have as a college for our students. So we really wanted to focus the RFP on that. And we also wanted to focus on student services types of pages. How do we guide students through the enrollment process? So there's special attention that's going to be paid to that funnel and how the navigation works to support students in that way. So what have we been working on so far? At the beginning, we did a lot of the discovery phase with sharing with iFactory, who we were, what have we done so far with our website, how does that function? We held various focus groups and stakeholder meetings with groups on campus last spring, faculty, with classified staff, managers, with the president's cabinet, and with students, for example, to get more information primarily from them about how they currently use the website, what they feel is missing, and what other types of websites or things do they really like and would like to see be part of our new site. And that was all feedback that was shared with the consultant team and that they are taking into consideration as they come up with recommendations for us and how to redesign. There's also a user personas process, which Dan will describe to you a little bit about what that is. But essentially, we're taking the approach of how do users need to interact with our website, and how do we design every aspect of the site to facilitate that and make it easy for students, parents, anyone out in the community to learn more about our college and how to enroll. Then we've gone through a sitemap process, a wireframe process, which we'll describe, and then what is still coming up is the design aspect, which we will have the consultant come back and do a workshop with the campus on design to get feedback on that. And then they'll move into developing the HTML, and something that Dan will touch on is once this consultant has completed the design, then Omni Update, our content management side of our website, will begin the content migration process. So we hope, in terms of a timeline, to be ready to kind of launch the new website either in the late spring or sometime during the summer. And it's really important to us that we get it right. We don't rush it. We've waited a long time to do this, and we want to get it right. And another thing that I want to point out is that nothing that we're sharing today or that you will see in design is set in stone. The planning team, taking the recommendations from the expertise of the consultant, is making our best judgment call on how things should be laid out. But we really will have opportunity to get feedback, whether it's about individual pages or how things are worded. Nothing is set in stone. This will be kind of an ongoing process to make tweaks to the pages, but we really want to reiterate that it's really about making it as easy as possible for students to interact with the website, and putting students first is what we really want to make sure is front and center. So I wanted to share with you just a little bit of what we learned through the discovery process. So as I mentioned, we did stakeholder interviews and focus groups. The consultant did a campus tour and a tour even of our community to get a better feel for who we are as a college. And they also looked at comparable colleges to see what our competitors are doing with their websites, and shared some of that. We know that there are many audiences that we serve, internal and external. But for purposes of the work that we're doing, we're really prioritizing who are the highest priority audiences that we really want to make sure we're serving. So we have our prospective traditional students. These may be our in-district students or students who are coming here to transfer. We have what we call influencers, which are the parents or family members. Non-traditional students, which may be adult education students or students coming back to upskill, or many of our CTE students, and then community members. We know that community members are very involved in our college and want to learn more about what arts and culture activities they can, participate with or attend at our college. So we want to make sure that they have the ability to easily find out about those kinds of things. So how will we define success? Wow is what we want the reaction to be with our new website. And we want the experience and the brand to be represented in an authentic manner, and that's really high quality. We want deeper engagement with students and with anyone who is trying to find something on our website. And we really want to make sure that our internal stakeholders also have buy-in. And what we mean by that is we hear often that it's really difficult for departments or staff to make updates to the website or change things, or they have something that's really neat that they want to share and it's not maybe the easiest thing to try to get on our website. That's part of what this is intended to help address as well, to make it easier for staff and faculty or departments to make updates. We'll have brand new templates for department pages so that you'll have the ability to either have something that's fairly static that maybe you don't have time to update very often but will still look great. Or if you're a department that has a lot of materials that you'd like to share, whether it's video or photographs or great student stories, there will be the ability for you to showcase that in a beautiful way on the new website. So just to share with you a little bit about what we learned with students. So we've gotten quite a bit of feedback from students, not only from the stakeholder groups, but we've also gone to meet with student services, student worker groups. We also had a table at the Carol Welcome where we talked to dozens and dozens of students to let them know that we were doing this and to get some quick feedback from them about what they thought about our website. We shared with them some very high-level design concepts to get their feedback on certain things. And which this may not come as a surprise, but students have been very honest, brutally honest in a lot of cases. But that's good. It's information we want to know. We want to hear what they like and don't like. Overwhelmingly, students have mentioned, whether they were local or not, that one of the main reasons they came here was the high quality of their education and the location. They talked so much about how beautiful our campus is. It's a happy place to be. And then having, it being the #1 community college is kind of the cherry on top. It's a great stepping stone for a 4-year program. But some of the things we also heard, which can be frustrating for those of us who know about all our amazing programs, is that many times students don't know about programs that exist out there, support programs. They either find it difficult to find where those programs are, or they're just not aware of them. They also wanted to hear and have our website talk more about success stories of students like them. So some of the things that we heard, you'll see the quote up in the corner. I try not to go to the website because it's frequently overwhelming. Overwhelming is a word that we heard used a lot, especially when we showed them just our homepage. They don't even know where to go. So the goal is really to simplify it and make it, have the website guide them to where we want them to go, and have it be simple. Too many words, text heavy, made me feel like I wasn't smart enough to go to college. That was something that even our consultant mentioned is frequently something that they talk about with their clients, and that has to do with the language that's used, making sure that maybe it's not the best idea to have kind of college level language and grammar used on a community college website if your students are your primary audience. making it using simple language that's easy for them to quickly scan, particularly on a mobile device. It's too complicated, crowded, complicated for older students, it's old or outdated, and there's no social media. So these are all things that we're planning to address. So when we showed them examples of other websites, these are the types of websites that they liked. And what they liked about it are things like, I can see myself in photos like this. They're authentic photos. They don't feel like they're like stock images. They're photos of real-looking people. It's easy, it has a very simple kind of navigation, few words. This was consistently the type of design treatment that students really resonated with them. And they would say things like, I really like that it's simple, that it's easy, it's intuitive. It's easy to scan in a couple seconds, the whole site. Really well put together. And they attributed things like high quality or worth my investment with sites that they really liked. And the overall impression that it leaves you of the institution. I get what I'm paying for. They have their stuff together. It really ties into what their impression is of the school. So if you look at some of our competitors, for example, or our nearby colleges if they're not necessarily competitors, but Cuesta College very recently updated their website. Colleges like Santa Monica and Miracosta, and they are all mobile responsive. They're all very simple, easy to navigate. Particularly the enrollment process is very easily laid out very simply, gives students a very quick snapshot of what it takes to be a student, which makes it feel less like a huge task. It makes it welcoming and easy for students to enroll. So some of the recommendations that iFactory has given us so far is to really focus on storytelling. Focus on who we are as a college, what we offer, and what students should expect to experience if they come to Santa Barbara City College. So that's a great way to introduce SBCC. Talk to users about their hopes and dreams. What can you become when you come here? Use those success stories. I think that was something that has been really valuable for our planning team to have heard from students, that they really do relate to student success stories or even faculty stories. That was something maybe we didn't think might be very relevant, but consistently we've heard they want to hear more of those stories. They want to see themselves in those students. Encourage users to act, take that next step, join us. Obviously be more visual, incorporate videos and photography, and develop a content strategy. And that's really geared towards the internal audience, which will be a phase of this project, is how we work with all of you to keep the content current, keep it compelling. That's something that we really want to work with all of our campus departments on. If you have a need for, photography or video, or we want to feature some students, those are all things that we can, work on as a next phase. And we'll implement things like report analytics, which we do some of this already, but we're really going to use that to guide any kind of tweaks that we might need to make. And then moving forward, the internal audience content is something that we'll work on. We understand that we'll probably need to do some training and have users trained in how to update things on their website, and that's all something that we will do. Just as important as what we will do is what the new website will not do or should not do. It should not be a bulletin board for news, events, or announcements, especially for internal audiences. We need to find a better way to share information internally that doesn't necessarily need to be on our website. It shouldn't be the absolute kind of encyclopedia of everything that students need to know. Students need to have all the basic information and then easily have someone that they can call or contact for those more detailed questions. I think students really valued that human contact at some point through their process, and making that easy. It shouldn't be, we don't want to have this competition or trying to put everything on the homepage. We want to keep it very simple. It turns people away when there's too much on the homepage. It shouldn't be an academic publication. Again, we need to keep the language, simple, accessible, and welcoming, and trying not to have, too high of a reading level in terms of the writing. Use your homepage to introduce SBCC to first-time visitors. This is the direction that we need to move towards. Improving the customer service and the customer experience through navigation, help people find what they need, provide easy access. And the way that we've approached this is by thinking about what these prospective, types of audiences, are they more likely to be needing to do on our website? So think through that process and how they would do that, whether it's how do I find out, how I can get financial aid? How do I sign up for a class? How do I find out what's, going on at the Garvin? So if we think through it from the user lens, we're able to kind of map out what their process will be and how to make that an easier journey for them. And let storytelling drive the funnel. This is something that we're seeing many other colleges that are looking at redoing their websites, really focusing much more on this storytelling aspect. That's how we draw in any really audience, whether it's parents, who might see students in a particular job or a field, hey, my son or daughter might want to do that. Let me learn more about City College. Or students who see photos of other students taking a class at the beach. We have photos like that, and that has been, students don't even know that they can do that, but they want to be able to see themselves in their classmates. And encourage others to explore. So it's really about highlighting all of the many programs that we have, all the many opportunities that there are for students when they leave Santa Barbara City College, and encourage them to explore whether it's a career, a program, an interest, a certificate, and what you can do with that. And very quickly, there's research that was pointed out to us from even from Omni Update from 2014 about what matters most to prospective students. And you'll see here academic, these are seniors and juniors in high school. What matters to them? Academics is still very, very high. Cost, how can I get financial aid? How can I afford to go to college? What's the enrollment process? How do I enroll? Student life, what's it like to be a student here? And by wayfinding, we mean the location, how easy is it to get here. We see a lot of questions around transportation, how do I find my way around campus, things like that. So maps are still really important. So that's just a little snapshot in terms of what we know about prospective students. Now I'll ask Dan to come up and talk to you a little bit more about some of the work that we've done so far.
Thank you, Luz. Great job so far. Our work to date. We've had a group, the core group that Luz was talking about, meeting several times a month to go through all the content, all the personas, and all the next slides I'm going to show you. We have a total on our website about 2,500 web pages. So the first thing we had to do is we had to do a content inventory of everything that's on our website currently. We had 1,500 individual content URLs and 30 subdomains. That's basically all of the URLs. So everything from sbcc.edu and then on, and then also things like pipeline.sbcc.edu or frc.sbcc.edu. There's a lot of There's a lot of URLs and a lot of pages. A lot of the content we looked at, we saw could be merged or was redundant. And then we went through in our content inventory looking at what do we need to keep, what are some of the web pages we need to keep, what are ones that we can archive, and then what are ones that we can create or make new by merging the content. So several of our web pages will continue to exist, but we may not migrate over to the new website. So this was, I think we spent, 2 whole days going through all of the content that had been mapped out. So making those decisions. The next thing we did is this is an overview of our user personas that Luz was talking about earlier. We had the prospective traditional student, we had the prospective non-traditional student, we had the parent, guardian, and then we also had the community member. These are all users of our website that are coming to our website to look for different things or have a different purpose. So how do we lead them through our website, through those funnels, in what it is they're looking for and what it is they want? So we have a sample of a prospective student here. And we have Maya as this user persona of a traditional student. I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is a sample. What are the key characteristics of this prospective traditional student? What are their challenges? What are the tasks that they're looking to do? And then what are their business objectives? And then what's the key takeaway for this person? So we want them to leave, this prospective student who comes to our website, we want them to, when they come to the website, we want them to say, starting my education at SBCC will still let me get the degree I really want, and I can have a great, and it goes on. So it's just moving through each one of those areas for each one of these personas. We also then tried to map our content matrix and content outlines with the user personas. So we have their user task, then we have the impression that we want them to have when they visit the web page, and then what is the content that's going to give them that. And we'll be sharing this presentation with you so you can actually look at these a little closer and kind of read through what we have here. We want to make the navigation as easy as possible, again, for each one of these user personas. So in an effort to do that, we've been working on our sitemap. So again, along with all the content, we're looking at the sitemap and all the navigation and all the links. And as Lou stated earlier, on the sitemap, none of this is set in stone, but we're trying to put things into buckets to make it easy to navigate. So academics, apply and enroll, pay for college, support and student success, things for our community that they're looking for. Again, aligning the content and the user personas, and now the navigation and the sitemap. And again, we can't put everything on the homepage. We just can't. As much as we'd like to, it's overwhelming and leads people away from it. So then the next step after this, and then the other thing that the team's been working on, both iFactory and internally, is our wireframes. So this is the foundation for the design. It doesn't dictate the design, but it dictates what's on the page. So we're organizing the content at each page level. It's very high level. It's just about us thinking about how we want to organize the content. This is a major effort into making sure we're meeting those key objectives of those user personas and the takeaways, the calls to action that we want, those CATs. And finally, we have the work we've been doing with the content planner. This is, again, going back to the initial piece where we're looking at what do we keep, what do we merge, what do we archive, how do we then tie that to the sitemap that I just showed you in the navigation. So we're going to be doing 900 URLs, and that is an effort in itself. So once we have the design and once we have all these URLs and all this work done, it's migrating that content over to our new site, and we'll be setting up a stage server and getting everything ready for that, getting all of those pages moved over, and then we'll go live with a whole new site with these 900 pages, and then have archives to some of the other stuff. So design is still to come, as was mentioned. We're going to be doing more focus groups, getting more feedback on the design. We'll do the art direction, the look and feel, the key screens for the main pages and then the lower level pages. And And I think this is all about user experience. This is what SBCC is. So beginning of the creative exercise, we want to start with the words, and then we want to get to the visuals. We want these are the words we use, but these are what we want the visuals to be. We want them to be welcoming. We want them to be filled with authentic pictures, images of people, as Lou said. We want to promote success, be helpful, organized, and clean. Not the opposite of those words, but we want our images and our website to be that. So I'm going to do a couple other screens, then we'll jump to questions. And if you have questions, please come use the mic, because we will be live streaming. As you know, we're live streaming, and it'll be on YouTube, and we want to be able to hear your questions. So we'll answer those as soon as I'm done with the next steps. So we're working with iFactory on the home page. They'll present the content guidelines and then help us with the migration and the metadata, and then we'll be migrating the content. We'll still be using the Omni Update course management system to manage our site, and we'll be working with Omni Update to help us migrate all the data, because that is a huge undertaking. And then our project timeline. So this is information architecture in May through October. Our content strategy is June through September, and then our design is June through November, and then we'll be doing the front end HTML and hopefully have the design work done and start the content in and be ready in February. So that's it. I think we're ready for questions. If you have questions. I know we went through a lot of content in half an hour, so we'll be happy to go back to any screens. Don't be shy, come ask a question.
So if I have a web page, and I do, I have a President's web page, and there are some things that I want to have transitioned over to the new website, but there's some things I'd really like to leave behind. Who's going to be asking me about that? That's what I'm worried about, Kenley. Is there going to be an interface with the team or something in terms of?
That's a great
that part of
question. Thank you, Dr. Beebe. So, I mean, we would encourage departments, if they're in particular needing to streamline their content, there's no reason you can't do that now with your current websites, because as Dan mentioned, the content will be migrated. We don't have a part of this scope to redo a lot of content. So if you are a department that has things that you don't really need or want, you know, you can do that now. We will have things like training for those people in your departments that will be the heavy users to update websites. We'll work with them, you know, when we get to that point. But it's going to be an ongoing process to take a look at the new template. I mean, just the new design template is going to be a complete 180 in terms of, you know, moving forward with a more modern kind of design. And then you'll be able to see how that functions and what things you may want to change or update, or places where you want to fill in. Another big goal of this is we know that there are a lot of departments that have their own kind of rogue websites out there. We really want to encourage you to come back to the SBCC website when we have the new design. It makes it a lot easier to have you know, oversight over accessibility and making sure that the content is accurate. So we hope that that will be something that happens as well. Any other questions?
I can add on a little bit to that. Part of the reason why we have rogue websites is because users haven't had, because our website's so dated, it was actually state of the art in 2007, which is what, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, which is ages as far as technology goes. But they didn't have the responsive design, the mobile design. They didn't have some of the functionality. We're designing templates that will have that. And then I'd also add on to you have within your ability now an opportunity to update your content to make it more relevant. And I would encourage you to do that. And some of the more complicated stuff you can work with our IT department, put in a work request or contact our help desk, and we can create a work order, and we can get some of our staff to work with you on some maybe the more complex things you might want to do with your web page. So.
So I don't want to be that guy, but I have to ask a question. How many out here have read Stephen Krug's Don't Make Me Think book on web design? Yeah. So the one thing that I see that's a problem with this process, it's more of a comment than a question, but is that most people think when they design, we're going to go from line 1, line 2, and then you actually do eye tracking on people, and they go all over the place. And the only way to really figure that out is to do user testing in your design phase. And on your first slide, I didn't see any user testing in there itself. Like, where are we getting people who've never seen this before come in and ask them to do a task, and then follow them along and see, ask them what's confusing, and you have to do that in the design phase, because otherwise, if we'd done that with our current thing that we have now, we wouldn't have the registration problems, all these other problems. So I guess my question is, where is the user testing in this process?
That's a great question, and we didn't get into too much of the detail of the work that we've done, but the consultant did actually do a lot of user testing with our current website. They had people pretend to be students and try to go through, that process, and they did deliver to us a document where they talked about all the different challenges and roadblocks that existed to be able to do that based on the different personas that we were talking about. So we do have that informs the design. I don't have with me the exact details of what will happen with design from here moving forward, but I do expect that we will want to do user testing, particularly with students and all these different kinds of audiences, but that's a absolutely great point.
Yeah, just to button that up. Just to button that up. Like I was just re-emphasizing that at the actual process, when you put something out, that it has to be a continuous process. It can't just be like we do this for a week and then that's our user testing. It has to be we continuously go through that realm, and that's the only thing. I just want to make sure that got out there, because that would avoid a lot.
Any other questions? That's okay.
So currently the website has student content and staff content. So when you're streamlining the content, will you be deleting some of the staff content, but will we be notified what's deleted and what's not?
That's also a great question. So you saw that we went through all the URLs. For the most part, we're trying to, wherever possible, to merge or revise information so that it's in one place. Right now, we have a lot of information in lots of different pages. For anything that either we have a question about or we know that we need to work with that department to revise their content, we're not going to delete it. We're probably going to keep it on the existing website and then work with your department and migrate over what is appropriate to move over. One thing that we really want to communicate is if there are internal kind of business practice documents or information, hopefully another part of this will be, does that really need to be on the website? It needs to be easily accessible to staff and faculty, but is there another way to accomplish that? Is it through pipeline? Is it through some other type of internal portal? So those are conversations that we will still have, but we're gonna not delete your content. There will still be a way for you to get to it, and then we'll have conversations with those departments about how we can achieve your needs, and maybe that is through the new website, and maybe it's through some other means. Yeah, and that was something we heard from students. If students start going through parts of the website, they get somewhere where it's information that's really not for them, and it can be really confusing or even very off-putting if they're seeing things like, here's how you get a reimbursement for something. Those are things that don't really need to be on the website. But thank you, that's a great question.
So I can play Oprah or Phil Donahue or whatever. Question right here.
So I noticed at the beginning you said that we're not necessarily going to be putting like updates like a bulletin board or anything like that on the webpage. Are we going to be trying to kind of shuffle that over to Pipeline and have that be more of a current student vehicle? And then if that is the case, I know you had some objectives on there, but is the fundamental goal of the website to be increasing enrollment, or what's the end game of the website versus Pipeline and the division there?
That's a great question. So the website will still have things like a social media feed where we still push a lot of information that's directly geared towards students. We're hoping to work with Kenley on calendars and having calendars that are easier for people to get information about activities that are happening on campus, and that's really important and useful information for students, for community members, for anyone really on campus. So it's not necessarily getting rid of any kind of bulletin type of treatment, but it's ways that we can make that more streamlined or easier. And then we'll still continue to use Pipeline for, you know, important student information. It's not really, the point for this whole process is not about enrollment. It's time to do it. As you heard Dan say, we haven't done a new website since 2007. So it's time for us to do this, no matter, completely regardless of our enrollment situation or anything like that. It's just time to do it. I think especially having a website that's responsive on mobile devices is huge. That's something we absolutely need to do.
And then I was also wondering, do we have any actual in-place strategies for social media integration? That seems like a pretty powerful marketing tool that we don't really have to pay for, that we can just have them run and do the footwork. Do we have anything specific in place for that, or is it more just a generic idea that we want to get onto?
No, the new design absolutely has kind of front and center a way to integrate our social media. In particular, Instagram and Twitter are the two that we see most often on websites. You're right, it's absolutely a way to spotlight student life. It's a way to spotlight programs, what we do, and also to share kind of current information about what's going on campus.
Yeah, I have a question regarding that. So I'm just started to implement something with my department with social media and updating our page. But then in order like to have all this social media on our page, or are we ADA compliant? That's the thing. So one of the things I learned, I can send all that to YouTube, who caption everything for us.
Mm-hmm.
But will there be someone at the college who is going to be in charge of doing this kind of work, not to for us to upload something which is going to be inappropriate or?
Right.
So, or will we go about that? Because I'm starting the process at the present
Sure.
time.
So accessibility is a very key and integral part of this whole process. And that was a specific requirement that we wanted from any consultant that we worked with, that they had strong experience in meeting our accessibility standards. So they're taking all of that into account with everything that they're designing for the new website. And part of the training that we'll do with departments is exactly what you've described. If you're going to use really anything, images, any kind of video, any part of your department website, we want to make sure you have the tools to be able to be creative and show things while also meeting the standards that we have. And like you saw, one of our team members is Lori Vasquez, and she has been just a great resource for our team and also in working with the consultant to make sure that we have addressed that. So that will be part of the training that we'll do once we have the new design, is to talk to departments about how to make sure that they are being appropriate and making sure that they're meeting our standards for anything that they want to put on their sites.
I'm next. My question is the School of Extended Learning, non-credit area. I see that you have these plans for credit. I assume you're going to do the same thing or apply the same principles to non-credit. My question is, are you planning to present this in the non-credit or School of Extended Learning? And my other question, I'm sorry, I'm going to throw both of them.
Okay.
Have you, in your test where you had students play with the registration and the website, do you know if non-credit students were included in this test? Will they be part of the testing when you put the new website in place for School of Extended Learning?
Thank you, that's a great question. So if you've seen from the timing, School of Extended Learning came up kind of at a great time in this process, because we've been able to integrate School of Extended Learning into things like the sitemap and how we are listing information. So School of Extended Learning will have a prominent role in the website, just like Noncredit has now. So we have been able to start building in the space for School of Extended Learning. When we did the student focus groups, I don't know that we asked if they were credit or non-credit, but we did have adult students. So we did get their feedback. But I think you bring up a great point as we get farther down, especially with design and some of the user testing, that we make sure we reach out to non-credit students.
You remind me. Is there a plan to have these websites available in different languages, as we serve a lot of these students with that come to the United States and they're not native speakers of English? So
Sure.
any plans on that?
So that's not something that's in the scope right now, but what we have found as we've been doing more research on other websites is ways that other colleges have been able to do that. So that's something that we're definitely going to explore. That's better than just the, hitting Google Translate and having it do that, because we know that's not enough, and it's not where we would want it to be. But there are some interesting things that other websites are doing to address that very issue that we'll be looking at.
Can I have one more?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No, that's why we're here.
Okay, sure, bring it up. When a lot of the students in non-credit, we do have a lot of the hand holding for registration. We're teaching in the classrooms, and we're also registering students, and we're helping them through the whole process. And right now, kind of the same registration process applies to non-credit, which is being a little bit confusing and difficult for students. Is there a plan to kind of tweak that registration for students of extended learning, since a lot of the things do not apply to the students anyways?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of control over the specific application process, but where we will have control is with the information that we guide students with. So one thing that we've definitely learned is that one size doesn't fit all for all our different types of students. So in the funnel, we will have a space for those adult learners, or non-credit learners, where we'll be able to have control over how we guide them to the information that they need. And that, as you know, even with extended learning, is kind of a continually evolving process as we make improvements and make things easier for students.
I was going to add to that, just to recognize that the website is independent of the registration system. So the registration system is Banner, and they have their own pages that are independent from what we build through the website. So we are limited in what we can do within the scope of this project, but there's things that we can do within the scope of a Banner project.
And we do have a Banner project as well. We are upgrading from Banner 8 to Banner 9, and we're hoping to have all the back office, all the admin pages, all the things that all of us work on behind the scenes done by December 2018. And in parallel, hopefully, in the middle of 2018, we start working on some of the self-service and some of the registration stuff for both credit and non-credit, to make that registration process easier. We still have to tackle the application process, but there are distinct things, as Kenley was saying. We have the website, which is the information, which is what we're improving and talking about here. Then we have the application process, then we have the registration process. And those are three distinct processes with their own designs.
Any other questions?
We've got our superintendent as our moderator. That's
like
pretty
this.
great, yeah. Any other questions? Like I mentioned, I will send out this presentation so that you can review it if there were things that you wanted to take a second look at. You're always welcome to email or call me, or even stop by my office if you have something that you think about later that you want to make sure that we capture. And we'll have subsequent presentations and opportunities for all different groups throughout the campus to be involved in this process. As you've seen, it's been a long process up to this point, and we've still got quite a lot to go. but it's a very worthy effort. It will be so much better once we get there, and we're really excited to be able to do this for our college. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.